Come on, get some! Get some! Formula E is now in its 5th season, and as the premier single-seater open-wheel electric racing series, it's still gathering up attention of the world. It's still trying to build momentum as the go-to series for people interested in motorsports. I myself am fairly late to the game. This weekend I went for the first time to a race, to the Paris E-Prix, and got to see these amazing cars racing around a tight city circuit for the first time. The technology that's been building these cars is developing year by year, but this year in the 5th season is the first time we're seeing the Gen 2 car, a car that's now got the battery capacity that allows drivers to do a whole race in one car, which seems like a foregone conclusion in most motorsports, but is a new thing for Formula E. There's also a whole bunch of new innovations that are making these cars more exciting to drive and hopefully to watch as well. Mahindra have been kind enough to invite me out to watch the race, but more importantly than that, they've now flown me to Barcelona a couple of days after to have a go in the car itself. First, the Gen 1 car, the car that has led up to last season, and then in the Gen 2 car, the car that I literally just saw driving on track a couple of days ago in Paris. They're going to let me have a go in that car. But first, they let me have a go in the simulator, which was an exceptionally smart idea. Now, I've driven my fair share of fast cars in my time, and even a few proper race cars, but this would be my first time ever getting to grips with an all-electric race car. The simulator at Mahindra's HQ was set up for Circuit de Calafat, where I would be driving the cars themselves the next day, and to give me the best possible start, I had current Mahindra Formula E driver Jerome D'Ambrosio right there with me to give me pointers for the track and a lightning round education on how to handle an all-electric open-wheel racer. It was pretty apparent straight away that the sim time was an extremely good idea, as I pirouetted off pretty much every single corner trying to get the feel for the brakes and the ferocity of the throttle. It was far more efficient to get all of my spinning out of my system here before taking to the track. Once my clumsy braking and way too eager right foot had been put in check, I started to feel a little more confident about the driving the next day. I squeezed in as much time on the sim as they would let me, and just before my arms gave out from fatigue, I called it a day in preparation for some real track time. That in there is the Gen 1 car, the car that's kind of set the standard for what Formula E was to become. Now in the rate at which the technology is developing, it seems, well, somewhat basic compared to the new car, but that's the one I'm going to be driving out first on track. This is the actual car that won Mahindra their very first race. But it's this one over here, the Gen 2 car, that I'm most excited about driving. When we first saw them unveiled a couple of months ago, well, last year before the liveries were added, and we just got to see them in their black shapes, they look so futuristic. That split wing at the rear just looks amazing, but with the addition of the halo system and all those little touches have changed it into a shape that's so much more futuristic than anything else we've seen, that kind of matches up with the technology that is driving it. An all-electric drivetrain was a completely different experience. There's instant torque, there's far more sophisticated systems that keep the car going forward, but getting the chance to drive it myself, well, that is one of the most exciting things I will have done this year. I can't wait. My time had come to set out in the Gen 1 car. I knew the circuit, I thought I knew the car, and it was time to put both to the test. The acceleration wasn't unfamiliar, having driven things like Teslas. Having all that torque immediately available wasn't a complete surprise. The difference is that now I'd be on track, taking sharp hairpins and fast corners, and that torque is way more than enough to break the back end loose in an instant. I'd watched some other journalists do that already on the day, and I was determined not to fall in that trap. The best approach was to brake later and longer into the apex of a turn, getting the car rotated so you can straighten out and get back on the power sooner. Aggressive in, smooth out. That's what you're meant to do. The difficulty is that if this is your first time in a car like this and you're trying not to make a fool of yourself, you're a bit more cautious and brake early. The brakes are good, really good, and if you give them a proper racing driver push like I was trying to do, they will stop you very effectively. But that left me a few car lengths short of the apex, with all my speed scrubbed off. Sooner than I thought. and unable to get back on the power early because that would cause a spin. In short, I felt a bit stupid. I kept it on track and I was nailing it down the straights, but I had terribly slow walking pace apex speeds. The thrill of the car though was immense. The nimble chassis, despite its relatively substantial weight, could be thrown around quite easily, and if you were able to balance it with the throttle, it made for a very fun drive indeed. But now I'd learned my lesson. In the Gen 2 car, I wouldn't be as cautious.
That is a lot of fun, but you're so focused. I spanned so many times in the simulator that I was really wary not to do it here today. I needed to keep on straight and narrow, and that was just a few laps, and that's just when you feel like you're beginning to get the hang of it. I was braking way too early. I could definitely hold on a little bit later, but I kept it on the tarmac, which was good, but it was fantastic, so good. And that's the Gen 1 car. After lunch, it's the Gen 2. Can't wait.
So here is the Gen 2 car, the car that they're running in the current 2018-2019 season of Formula E. It's got a maximum power of 350 brake horsepower, sub 3 seconds 0 to 62 kilometers an hour time, and it will top out at the restricted 155 kilometers an hour, but on the city circuits you wouldn't get anywhere near that. But what's most important is the acceleration, because the weight of this thing is less than a ton, and that's including the driver. So all of that power, all of that torque in a tight, twisty city circuit with the tires spinning up at every possible moment. This is the cutting edge of motorsport, and today I'm getting to have a go. The time I had in the Gen 2 car, the car I'd just seen racing 2 days ago, was limited, and I was determined not to waste a second of it. With every lesson from the Gen 1 car fresh in my mind, I decided to go for it in this session. Slipping into a race car with a full halo in it felt pretty special. With a team of engineers around you checking the car systems, giving you those last few pointers before you head out, it felt as close to being a racing driver as someone like me is ever likely to get. With everything in place, it was my time to head out.
Okay, Gen 2 car, last chance to have some fun. And this is the car that I actually saw racing just 2 days ago in Paris. Let's take the pit limiter off. Here we go. Oh yes, that power feels amazing.
Immediately when you use the car like it's meant to be used, it completely comes alive. Once you pluck up the courage to brake way later than you think you should and hold that all the way to the apex, the back end dutifully snaps round, lining you up for the straight, and you can nail it. The sharper steering, improved braking, and all-round generational leap between this car and the Gen 1 car was immediately apparent.
Wait, get it in a straight line, brake firmly, brake later than that, can brake there, right. Oh, I can brake a lot later than I think. Let's see if I can go later into this corner. Built my confidence up. Please don't spin, Drew. Please don't spin. Okay, nice and late into the corner. Now. Wait. Now. I can go quicker next time. Okay, this is the blind corner. I'm going to scrub off some speed here. In a straight line over this curb. Pretty good a straight line. Oh, I could have gone quicker there. This is it, it's all about could have gone quicker. Don't want to spin, but my god, I want to have some fun. I don't have long in this car. Full power. All that torque is available immediately. Oh, it turns so much easier, this car, than the previous gen. Some of that might be confidence building, but you can turn in, the steering feels much lighter. Yeah, enough feedback. Let's see if I can get to the sweeping section. Yes. Wait. I've gone wide there. Full power. Full power to this corner here. Wait for it. There we go. Oh, I can brake later. I can't get on the throttle earlier, but braking later means I carry a lot more speed.
The car was more confidence inspiring and I really started to enjoy myself. Maybe even a little bit too much.
Full throttle out of this corner. Come on, get some! Get some! Oh, that was the first time I felt like I came anywhere near to what the car can do. Right, everyone's watching on this corner, so let's try and do a nice late brake.
I would still never come close to getting every last bit of performance out of this car, but it certainly got the best out of me. With peak adrenaline pumping through my veins, it was time to head back to the pits and come down and get my head around the experience.
That was the experience of a lifetime. I don't know how fast that looked from the outside, but it felt a lot faster in the car. It's only 1 year between that car and that car. It's a small gap in kind of motorsport history, 1 year, but the difference in those cars is tremendous. It feels like an evolution of the sport, but something that might have taken Formula One years and years to achieve. They've done just between one generation and the next. Someone was saying earlier that the Gen 1 car feels like a prototype, whereas the Gen 2 feels like the finished product, and yeah, I can't say I don't agree with that.
So this has been an incredible introduction to Formula E that not many people would get the chance to do. My first ever race to attend was on Saturday at the E-Prix, the Paris E-Prix, and then getting flown out here to Barcelona to have a go in the cars themselves, the Gen 1 and then the Gen 2. So I've gone from utter Formula E ignorance to, well, frankly, a lot more experience than most people will ever get. First-hand experience of driving the previous car and the new car, and I'm very grateful to Mahindra for giving me this experience. But more than that, it's shown me how much the sport is changing and how much it has still to give. The top end of motorsport really has to represent the best innovations in automotive technology. Formula One still has some to give there, but Formula E it makes more sense. The drivetrains that get developed for these cars could very conceivably be put in the electric cars of tomorrow, and some of them are already making their way into the technology of tomorrow's hypercars, which are the day after tomorrow's regular cars. The technology that these cars represent is incredibly exciting. The race that I saw on Saturday was incredibly exciting, and now when we're frequently seeing Formula One getting really dull, and especially with certain teams just dominating year after year, the fact that as it stands now in the championship, there have been 8 different races with 8 different winners from 7 different teams. In a motorsport that's wheel-to-wheel in city centres, representing the cutting edge of technology in cars that you're going to see in your car very, very shortly. It's been a really great way to start to get to know this fledgling motorsport, one that I hope will last indefinitely and will one day maybe, if not be the top end of motorsport, certainly have contributed to creating it. But now I think it's time to let the adrenaline levels simmer down, maybe take in a few more moments to glance at these amazing pieces of kit.